Welcome to first episode in a series that I'm going to be doing, where I take one of my Ludum Dare games I've made and try to redo it and uh, make it better. In this series, I will actually be programming it, so you can kind of see how I program. And now it's not going to be like a tutorial where uh, you know, I'm not going to go kind of step by step or anything. I think if you want to learn more about Unity and programming, you can search for other websites. But this is just going to go through and me just make a game, make this game that I made better. Now it is going to be done completely redone. Um, this game that I had made for Ludum Dare 48. It's called Deep Dark Deadly Forest. The theme of this Ludum Dare was deeper and deeper. I had made this with my brother, who was just starting to learn how to program. My daughter, the reason why I'm doing this, my daughter really loved this game, and she kind of wants to get into programming. She wants to learn how to program, and I thought I would kind of make this game. Maybe she could see a little bit of it. After I started doing it, I kind of realized that some of the things that I would have to do in this game is probably a little bit above what she had to do, what she could probably really learn at this point. She is just in middle school right now. But anyway, so I'm going to take this game. So she did like it of all the ones I've made for Ludum Dare, and try to make it better. Now I did do a video recently that goes through all the Ludum Dare games that I've made. So if you want to check that video out, you can. So, anyways, the premise of this game was you have a bunch of villagers, and they walk into this forest, and you click on the different resources, and then they'll start gathering it, and then use the resources to build more huts, to build weapons for them. Because as they go into the forest a little bit deeper, there's a monster, and the monster will just try to kill them. Now, if they have enough courage, they can defeat the monster. If they defeat the monster, they get more courage, and so that's how they kind of level up. Um, but the game kind of had some features in it that wasn't really crazy about. Like if you see the screenshot right here, you actually click on the villager, and then you kind of pick what they are going to do. That didn't really translate too well in the game. And so I'm going to kind of change that up a little bit. I'll probably change the graphics and just see how it goes from there. How the monsters were, they were just kind of placed at specific spots, and they would just kind of, their hand would just show and hit the monster or hit the villagers. I'll probably have it where the monsters will actually be on the screen, and they can kind of move around. And then do attacking that way. But yeah, I'm just going to start programming this, and you can watch, and I'll probably talk about it as I program it. And we'll just see how it goes. So let me see. Let me go to Unity. I've actually already started this program. I kind of already started doing some of it. And so I'm going to just show you what I have right now. So whenever I do start programming, I don't use any of the graphics yet. I just kind of use squares and things. Imagine that these squares are like resources that they could go to, and these are the villagers. And if I click on one of them, click on one of them will go to it, and then take it up. And then it drops a resource. If I click another one, it will go and do that. Now, if I click several of them, the different villagers will go. And if I click here, they'll go and pick up the resources. So that's kind of where I'm at right now for the game. Working on villagers and working on their task. And let's see, I have a null reference somewhere. So let's see. As I'm programming this, I'm going to, I don't have like a script here of what I'm going to be saying or what I'm going to be doing. I have kind of an idea of what I want to work on. I'm just going to work on it. And so there are going to be bugs, and I'll fix them as I'm recording. But let me just go through a little bit of my scripts that I've done so far. I have 3 managers right now, one for clicking, and all this does is it gets the input from the mouse and it sends a raycast from the camera and sees if it collides with any colliders, and if it does, it will create a task. I'm not using like a grid system for any of the objects or anything like that to help with detecting. They can, they'll just be able to click wherever, and then each item has a box collider on it. If you click on it, it will create a new task for that interactable object. So if I go back here, I have a map manager, and right now all it's doing is keeping track of objects in the world. And it does some functions like adding the resource after a villager has interacted with the bush and chopped it down, I guess. Adds a resource. It can set an interactable object, and maybe I'll go over that a little bit. So it just has different functions, and I'm going to say this up front. There's a lot of different ways you can go about programming something, and a lot of different kind of engineering. I'm just going to make it kind of simple when I do this. When I do the programming. So like I said, don't take this as a tutorial necessarily, or even like the best way to program this, because there's different thoughts on how you could go about doing this. I'm really sticking to a more Unity kind of way of programming instead of just maybe like keeping the data separate from the graphics type of stuff and doing different things. I'm going to basically be working with components, and maybe I have some scriptable objects I'll be using. In case you don't know, a manager is basically a singleton. Those are my managers. There's a singleton. We have a public instance of the class map manager, and then when it wakes up, it checks to see if there is one already. If there's already one, it destroys this one. If there isn't, it sets this one to that manager. And then what I can do is in other scripts, I can use this manager without having to kind of connect it through like Unity by using different references that way. I do want to say about my experience with programming. Everything's pretty much self-taught. The C# self-taught. I'm not a programmer by trade. It is just a hobby. So some of the lingo or the jargon I may not always say correctly, but that's that. So all right, so I have that manager. Let's see, what else do I have? I have a task manager. So the task, each time you click on an interactable, so let me load that script up as well. Interactable actions. All right, so interactable. So a game object could be an interactable where that's when you click on it, it's going to create a task. So in this case, it's going to have an action string. It's going to have an action. If you have done any programming, you know anything about delegates and actions, basically a delegate where I can save a function as a variable. And so this interaction will be a function that it will call when you create the task, or actually when a villager actually completes the task. It has a flag here whether this is supposed to be a task, and then whether it's working on it. It has a vector2 location, so this is basically where the interactable is located. I'm not really too sure why I'm using that. I think I used it to begin with because I was going to have this, like right now it's mono behavior. I think when I first was programming, I wasn't going to have this mono behavior at all. And so that's why I was using a location to reference that, but no, I'm not going. I'm going to mono behavior. And some of this, again, I was kind of programming, showing my daughter, and so I was trying to make it simple for her. Then we have a reference to the character controller, which is a villager, and so it knows who's interacting with it. All right, so that's the interactable. And so when you click on the interactable, it's going to check to see if this interactable is actually something that you would create a task for. So I guess the reason why I did that is because I could have some interactables that don't actually create like a task. So what happens in the system right now is it creates when you click on something, it's going to create a task, and then the task manager will have a list of tasks, and then a villager's AI is going to say, hey, are there any tasks for me to do? If there is, go do that task. And so there could be some interactables that don't have a task, where it's just more you click on it and maybe, I don't know, it does something else. Maybe you build something. I don't know. We'll see. So that's that. And then it calls the task manager, and it's a manager, so there's an instance of it. And so in my game, there's only going to be ever one task manager, and that's how singletons work. Again, if you want to know more about it, you can find out. Maybe YouTube singletons, and I'll program that. But in the task manager, it has a function called create task. Right now, I think this is a variable that says how long it takes for the task. So, and let me go. I'm actually going to go to that definition. Oh, it's not letting me do that. Let's see. I got to load it up. So let me just go to here. All right. So yeah, create task is a float of t. So this is probably the time. Here, let me just do time. Let me time. So it takes a float of time, the interactable, and the vector, the location that is the task. Probably this right here will change. I mean, this will be time, but probably the interactable will have a time on it. Let me see. So that'll be easy enough. Let's just say public float task time. And so we'll put that in we'll set to 0 as default. And then if I go to my click detector, I could probably actually get rid of this and go to the task manager. And then the create task, I'm going to get rid of the float time. And I will just use the interactable. And probably if I go to the task, not the task, let's see. Task equals new task. So in the new task, I'm not going to send it. I'm just going to send it the interactable. And so this is going to be interactable dot task. All right, why isn't it letting me know what to type here? Task time. Usually it shows. Let me just save all. All right. So yeah. So now it's going to use the interactable task time to set the max time for this task. So this is a task script, which is not model behavior, because this is not going to be on an object in Unity. It keeps track of the task time. That's how long it's been working on it. The interactable that it's doing, that it references, the location, whether it's complete or not. And this will probably be used for like the villager's AI to know whether or not it should go do that task or something like that, or maybe it's used for other things. The max time, which is used for how long it will take before it's done. We have a construct here for the task, for when you create a new task. And then we have a public function here, work on task. It takes a task speed. And then it works on that task speed. So I think the reason why I added this task speed is that maybe in this game I'll have like a speed controller, so you could go like, you could pause the game, you could go normal speed, or you could do quicker, and so everything would kind of move according to that speed. And so then the work on task, it just is incrementing the time by the speed, and then when it reaches the max time, it will say it's done. It will do the action of the interactable, calls this function, and then the task manager will add it to the completed task. All right, so let's take a look at the task manager. So again, this is an instance or a singleton. That's what this first line is doing. And then we have a list of tasks, like task has not worked. So this will, when it creates a task, it puts it in this list. So the ones that aren't worked on, so the AI can kind of search through the list and find a task to work on. Then it has a task that are being worked. So these are the current tasks that are being worked on. And then it has a completed task. So tasks that are completed and will be removed from the task worked on. In our update function, it's going to loop through all of the tasks that are being worked on, and it's going to run that function I just showed you, sending the delta time. That's fine. There are a couple different updates. This is probably the correct one to use, I think. I get kind of confused. There's a fixed update, and I don't know why it's not showing me what I could type in, but you have a void fixed update, and this one basically, I think it runs after the graphics. I'm not sure whether it runs after the graphics or not, or there's a late update. And I always get them kind of confused which one's which, of how when they actually run in the program. I think late update is going to run after all the updates. Fixed update might run during the graphics updates. I'm not sure. But anyways, I'm just putting it in the update for now. After it loops through the works, it loops through any of the completed task, and it removes it from there. And then anything that's completed, it clears it. So this is constantly checking for tasks and see if they're done, and then removing it. There's probably better ways to optimize this, but I'm not really going to worry about that right now. Like I said, I'm just going to kind of program this as I go, and make it kind of simple. Public void create task. You call this, which I kind of showed you already, when it creates the task. And we don't want to say time, we want to say interactable dot time max. I don't know if I need to quit model behavior here. Kind of check it out. Let's see. Let me save all that. So I think that is kind of how it's working right now. Let me go to some other scripts. So I do have an interactable action script. This is a static class, so it's not attached to anything. You can just call this in any script. You don't make an instance of it at all. And basically this script just stores all the actions that can be done. You basically call this function called interaction. You send it a string. You send it the game object that wants to create this action, and you send it also the interactable. Then it does a switch to find the string that associates with this function. So we have a gather string, and it creates this this delegate. Again, this is where the program is probably a little bit more complex than other kind of programming where we're using delegates. They're not really too hard to understand, though. I do suggest if you're programming, this can really change quite a bit of how you program and give you a lot of flexibility with your coding. But basically, what it does is it stores this function here into this variable, and so then when the task is finished, it runs this variable, which is going to be associated with this. And this gives you flexibility because we can set this to any kind of function we want. In this case, it has a function from the map manager called gather resource, and it sends it the game object, and it sends it the transform. In this case, it doesn't even need the interactable. Nothing from the interactable. The pickup, however, interactable. So when the resource drops, you click on it, and the interactable will be to pick up. So this will activate and run this function, which will then, you are actually sending it the character controller in this case. And I'll take a look at that in a sec. And then we have a store function, which does a function where it adds it to the storage. Currently, right now, I do not have any objects that store or anything that uses this just yet. So this could change. If I go to the map manager and look up the gather resource, it calls, and this is probably doesn't need to do this, but sometimes like separating your code out, you might want to do. And what I mean by that is, like, I could have added everything from the I could have added all this into, all of the, where's the add resource? I could have added all this code inside of the gather resource because that's what it does. But let's say, I don't know, I wanted to add resource, but it wasn't because a villager chopped it down. I just want to add resource. Maybe I want to just randomly add resource to the map. That's what this function will do. This function is kind of separate from the gather resource. So it allows me a little bit more flexibility when programming. So yeah, the gather resource calls this function, which sends the location and the interactable component. Again, I probably didn't need to do this, but this gets the component, the interactable component, which is on our interactable game object. I could rename this, just to be clear, with Geo, so that you know it's a game object. And so it goes to the resource. We're going to have a location and an interactable. Which probably needs to change. Let's see what this does. So it creates a gather object based on this interactable. I'm not sure if I want to do it that way, but that's what it does. Gather object. It changes this interactable to this here. I don't know if I really like that, but that's what it's doing. I probably want to change that to this. This is what I want to do. Gather object. And we're going to say gather object. And then instead of, I don't even need this anymore. Let me delete that. All right, then when I call it here, with the, here, I'll maybe zoom in a little bit. Gather resource, I'm going to change this to we're going to cast it to the gather object. Okay. And so I do use like inheritance where if I go back to my scripts, and go to the gather object script, which for some reason doesn't want to load right now. Well, okay. Let me save everything. Just attach it. Maybe I got to attach it. Okay, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm just going to close Visual Studio. And let me reopen it, see if that kind of helps. All right, there's my map manager. So I do have a few errors right here. Interactable does not exist in the current context. So where would that be? And this is not really helping out a whole lot. Usually when you double click, it takes you to it. There must be some kind of connection problem with you. I probably need to close it and load it back up. Yeah, we got some issues here. Let me just save this real quick. Save project. Well, I'll just keep programming and fix the errors later. Maybe off screen. But yeah, maybe I'll just stop the video here and come back to it. But just kind of showing you a little bit of what I've done. And I think next time I want to start having it where you actually start to build buildings, getting that kind of coding working. You can see these kind of like baby steps. I will try to program different systems. Right now, I have the task manager system for the game. I probably need to clean up some things, and then I'll do the building system, and then work from there. Then we maybe start doing the forest and having bad guys or things like that, or start working on the random map. I would like to do like a more something that's random map for the forest, like what type of resources you're going to get, what kind of monsters will be in the forest. But yeah, well, thanks for watching. I hope you'll continue to watch, and any kind of support would be great, such as just liking this video or anything like that, or if you have any comments. I appreciate any comments that you give. But I'll see you next time.